Hello, and today I'm making some chicken soup. And again, this is what I'm calling poor people food. I don't have a lot of money, so I like to cook as cheaply as possible, but with some really good stuff. So chicken was on sale, and I got all of this chicken for about $2.50. Okay, and if I was smart, I would have bought more, but I didn't have enough money. So the next thing, what I did was put this in the oven for 15 minutes at 350, and then I turned it over and then went 15 more minutes at 350. Then I pulled it out. I'm going to let it sit here for a minute, and you can see it's on a broiling pan, so all the fat kind of goes down to the bottom of this pan here. You can see that. They don't have to be cooked all the way through because they're going to go into the pot. And the pot has some water, and then I've chopped up some onions, and you can see a whole bunch of garlic floating around in there. Now the garlic's not going to be too hot because it's going to cook for, at least a couple hours. So the garlic is just going to get all nice and sweet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that chicken, just the way it is, and I'm just going to put it in this pot of boiling water as soon as that starts to boil. Then I'm going to add, let's see where to go. Here it is. I didn't have chicken bouillon, but I did have vegetable bouillon, so I'm going to use vegetable bouillon. It's just as good. Gives a lot of flavor. Then, after this cooked for a while, I'm going to chop up the sweet potato, and I'm going to add some spinach to that also. And then I'm debating if I want to put some noodles in. I'll probably put some noodles in, but I'll add that later. I'm going to let the vegetables sit for a while. I'm not going to put those in the pot yet. The water is boiling, so what I'm going to do is just now put in this chicken. One at a time, very careful. I'm just going to put it in just like that. What that's going to do is cook this even more, and it's going to break it down and make it nice and tender. Now the reason why I can do this with chicken thighs is because thighs are a dark meat, and the longer you cook thighs and legs, the softer the meat becomes. Now if I was to use chicken breasts, that would be a white meat, and if I stuck it in the pan and cooked it like this in boiling water for a long time, the meat would become very dry, even though it's cooked in here. So what I want to do is use the cheaper stuff, the thighs, so I can cook it for a long time and it still stays nice and tender. I'm going to save the more expensive chicken breasts for things I want to cook quickly and serve up quickly. So what I did is I just turn this down to a medium high. I want this to gently boil. If it starts to be too much again, I'll go ahead and turn it down a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to come back later after it's been about an hour and a half. Okay, so the soup has been cooking over about medium-high heat. I did come in and turn it down once because it was getting a little overflowing. But you can also see that it's been cooking for a long time, and you can see that the liquid has reduced, and you can also see that some of the, like the noodles, or not the noodles, the onions and garlic has also become very soft. So what I'm going to do now, each time I come in, I see bits and pieces of things floating on top like that's bits of skin. I'm going to pull that out and just set it aside here. You can see all that skin. We don't need that skin in here. It just adds fat to it, and so we don't need to have that in there. So also too, while I'm doing this, I will kind of pull out one of these and kind of gently pull off some of the meat off of the bone. I'm going to leave the bone in there to cook because that bone, as it's cooking, releases all kinds of real good stuff from the joints and from the bone itself. So it makes the soup much healthier. So it has gelatin, and then it has the stuff in the bone, the marrow, and stuff like that comes in there. So anyway, that's not quite done cooking yet because it doesn't pull off as nicely as I'd like. So I'm just going to cook it some more, probably about another half an hour. And then I'll come in and pull off some more of that, and then take out the bones and add other stuff. Okay, so this is cooked an hour and a half, and if I come in here and start to move that around, you can see that the chicken pretty much has shredded itself, just from the fact that I'm stirring it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here, and remembering that I used 8 thighs, I'm going to make sure that I have pulled out 8 bones. So So that is number 8. So that way I know all of my bones are now removed from the pan. Those have been boiled for an hour and a half, so pretty much all of the goodness has been boiled out of them. So I'm just going to toss those away. There's not much more I can do with it. Okay, so now this looks pretty good. So I'm going to keep that on about medium-high heat and bring it back to a boil again. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to work on my sweet potatoes. Okay, I'm going to turn this around here. So sweet potatoes are hard to cut. All right, so there's a couple things that I have learned. So here, that was all nice and fitted in there somehow. I don't know exactly how, but anyway, I just put it on the sides and sliced it down very carefully using both hands. I have a very sharp knife, and that's how it works. It's much easier to peel it this way after it has been cut into slices than it is to try to peel it like you would a potato. The regular potato peeler just doesn't work on these. These are just a little bit too hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, go through and get all of those off of there just by going down the side. Again, making sure my fingers are out of the way. Got impeccably clean hands, so touching it's not going to matter. There's a little bit more right there. Get that off of there. All right, and set that aside. So what I have left is this. Now there's a couple little eyes on here. I'm not going to worry about those. I'm going to turn these into nice big hunks because this is going to cook for a while. Here I've got that and that. It's a nice big hunk. It's going to go in there. It's going to break down. It's going to taste pretty good. This one's a little too big, so I'm just going to slice it down a little bit more. If it's smaller than normal size, then what will happen is this one will break down just a little bit more. It'll help to thicken up the sauce. So I'm going to have a couple of those. I'm just going to slice all of them into nice big hunks. And bring them down just a little bit. And then I'm going to put all of these into my pan of soup here. Oops, get the coffee out of the way. So here's my soup. I'm going to stick that back in there. The other one. So here you can see that my soup is now boiling with some sweet potatoes in it. I'm going to leave those in there to cook for about a half an hour until they're nice and fork soft, and then I will come back and I'll work with some spinach. Okay, I'm going to start to prepare my spinach so I can just put this in. Spinach doesn't take very long to cook. It takes about 5 minutes at the most. I'm going to add it at the very last. So when I buy a big bunch of spinach like this, it's all tied together like this, and spinach grows upright like this in basically very sandy soil. So when it's growing, all kinds of bits of dirt and sand get in between here. And then they have these big old long stems and big heavy stems here that we don't really want to eat those. They're a little bit chewy and kind of hard to do. So I just put it down like this, chopped it off with my knife, got rid of all those mostly big stems there. Now the rest of it, I'm just going to go through. This will take a little bit of time. And I'm going to pull off what I can of the rest of those big stems off of the rest of these leaves. I'm going to grab here and just pull until it gets really small. I'm going to throw the stems over there, break those in half and stick those in a bowl off to the side here, which I'm going to fill this with cold water, and then I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to agitate it around like that in the cold water, and then when I get ready to use it, I'm just going to pull it out like that, letting the dirty water stay in the bottom of the pan or in the bowl, and then go ahead and just stick it right into the soup. Now I am going to use all of this, because even though this big huge thing like this looks really big, once this cooks down, it cooks into nothing, so it'll be down to maybe that little bitty bit right there. So, and if you're thinking, well, I don't like spinach. Spinach is icky and it's all slimy and everything. Well, that's only true if you get it when it's frozen or if you get it when it's canned. Here, you can tell that's not slimy. That's just like lettuce. You could eat this just like this, and it's good stuff. In fact, you have a spinach salad all the time. This is good stuff. In fact, I'll eat it right now. But anyway, so I'm going to go through here and take all this off. This does take a little bit of time, but your soup will taste much better. Okay, the sweet potatoes have been boiling gently for about a half of an hour. So I'm going to take these in, I'm going to check them, and you can see how that mushes really nicely. That's nice and soft. That will be good. And they're ready to eat just like that. So I'm going to smush just a couple of them that I think might be a little bit too big. And then I'm going to add some noodles. And I'm going to add about a half a pound, which is for me a half a box. So I have these. They look like bow ties, but actually these are butterflies. So whatever, you can call them bow ties, butterflies, whatever. I'm going to stick this in here and let that cook for about 15 minutes. The noodles are almost finished, so the last thing that I need to put in here is my spinach. So I've taken all of that spinach and taken all of the really hard stems, except for that one. Let me get rid of that one now. And I put it in this water, and I'm just kind of pressing it down, just like that, and that's going to help to get rid of any dirt that may be left on them. So I'm going to bring this up and drain it over the bowl, and then I'm going to just take it and put it just like that into the soup. Now that looks like a lot, and it is. It's a lot of spinach. It's going to cook down really quickly. As soon as I get that stirred in there, I'll go ahead and just put that in like that and show you. There's still a little bit left here. As I put this down and get this into the hot liquid, it's going to break those down. And it's going to take about 5 minutes for this to cook down, and then I'm going to let it sit. I'll take it off the heat and just let it set for about 5 minutes, and then it'll be time to eat. We'll have a fabulous, fabulous chicken, sweet potato, noodle, and spinach soup. It's about 5 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes. My spinach, as you can see, has broken down and wilted into a bunch of nothingness, and it just looks wonderful in here. And you can see that I have a nice thick soup. There's a little bit of broth left over. And now I'm just going to add a little bit of pepper to taste, and then a little bit of salt. Don't want to add too much. If it's not salty enough for you, you can always add a little bit more. But always at the end of the meal or end of the cooking, I like to add just a little bit of salt and pepper. Kind of pulls everything together. So now I'm just going to take this, I should pay attention to what I'm doing, and just drop it in my bowl. Just like that. A little bit more, because I know this is going to taste absolutely fabulous. A little bit of soup. And there you are. That's my dinner for tonight. Let's do the costing on this. The chicken cost about $2.50. The spinach was $2. The sweet potato was $1.50. The noodles were about 50 cents, and the bouillon cube is, I don't know, 10 cents. So what does that add up to? About $6. I think it's a pretty good dinner, and they're going to serve probably about 6 people.